Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth episode here of Green Thumbs and Good Vibes, the podcast all about gardening and cultivating fruits and vegetables and the sustainable lifestyle that comes along with it. We are your hosts, Colin and Mitchell, and we have a guest today, Amy. And we are so happy you joined us today. Today is going to be a lifestyle video where we're going to talk a little bit about tapping and how you can incorporate that into your lifestyle to improve it in a similar way as gardening. So make sure to grab your cup of coffee and join us for today. So, Amy, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me, by the way. My name is Amy Vincze. I am a tapping coach, and I have been a tapping coach for about 15 years now. And I love tapping and I love talking about tapping. So I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So yes, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Mitchell and I both, know a few things. Me through Amy and our connection here in the Bay Area, through a networking group, and Mitchell through his own research. And we are kind of at the beginner level, and we're going to pose as the everyman, as it were, to just ask a few questions and see a little bit deeper dive into how tapping can benefit. So let's get started, Amy. Let's just start with like giving us a full explanation of your knowledge of tapping, how you got into it, and just a nice overview to start.
Of course. I was introduced to tapping quite a while ago by a friend. We were um, crewing at a Tony Robbins event, and he called me about a month later and said, I found this amazing tool. I really want to try it out with you. And so I think we had like one session. And since then, he's been off and running because that was moving way too slow for him. And that person is Nick Ortner. And if you know anything about tapping, Nick and his family have created a really huge platform to introduce tapping to the world, which is really wonderful. But since then, I've worked with my own tapping coach, and I had limited results in the beginning. I was always working on what was happening in the moment for me. So, something would happen on a certain day, and I would try and tap through that. Um, and I would end up feeling really neutralized over whatever the event was. But similar things kept happening. And I kept thinking, I really want to heal this part of my life. I don't want these things to continue to happen. So, on the advice of my coach, she said, okay, write a list of all of your fears down and then start tapping through those. And I was tapping on big things like fear of rejection and fear of abandonment and, fear of not being enough and big, big themes. And that was when I finally started to have some amazing results with tapping. And that was when I realized that the power of this tool goes way deeper than what I was aware of, what my coach was aware of at the time, and what the tapping world has been, or what the world has been exposed to through people like Nick Ortner and his family. It goes way deeper, and once I realized the potential, that's when I had to change my career, quit my job, and start doing this full time because I just realized people don't have to continue to suffer in their trauma and their fears and have to deal with that on a regular basis. They can really, as long as they acknowledge it and honor it and deal with it enough through tapping, they can actually free themselves from all of those constraints. And that's when I really became so passionate about tapping.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful story.
Uh-huh.
So can we just talk about exactly like if someone has no idea what tapping is, like what how would you explain it to a complete newbie?
Okay. Tapping is a really great combination between acupuncture and traditional talk therapy. So it's similar to acupuncture in that you are utilizing the 14 energy meridians that are in everybody's body, but instead of using needles on the pressure points, you are actually using the percussion of tapping on those points. So, kind of the idea behind acupuncture is when you have a fear or a limiting belief or a pain or disease of some sort, there is a blockage in your energy. Your energy is not flowing. And when you either use the needles or the percussion of tapping, it helps to dissipate that energy and allow it to flow again. And when your energy is flowing, your body is in a natural state of healing. You will heal
Mm.
if your energy is flowing. So that's what we're trying to do with tapping, is facilitate that, letting go of that energy blockage, starting to move it. But in order to move it, you have to kind of be with it and acknowledge it and honor it enough. For example, if you had a trauma when you were a child, maybe you were assaulted in some way, um, that blockage and that energy that creates all of the fears that have manifested in your life as a result of it, every aspect of that trauma needs to be acknowledged and honored and kind of allowed to your body to feel it. Most people tend to avoid pain of any sort, especially emotional pain. I mean, really, we could power a small city with the amount of energy people put into avoiding their pain, right?
Yeah.
So it means like actually leaning into the hard feelings, leaning into the fear, leaning into the pain, and talking through it. That's where the talk therapy part comes in, because while you're tapping on your energy meridians, you are saying things that acknowledge your feelings. Like, I'm so scared whenever I think about that event, or it makes me feel really unsafe, and I'm completely vulnerable, whatever it is.
Mm.
And the more you acknowledge it, the more you honor it, the more you're releasing it from your system, and the more your energy is starting to flow again. So that's where the combination of the two, the talk therapy, in and of itself, acupuncture is really powerful, but you add in the talk therapy aspect, and it's like putting a laser light on whatever it is you want to release from you. I like to think of it kind of like a tattoo. Like if you wanted to remove a tattoo, you could put a big diffused light over the situation, and it might reduce it a little bit, and it would take a long period of time. But if you put a laser light and you go over each individual line, then it gets removed very quickly and a lot easier. And that's how I think of tapping, because it is so fast compared to talk therapy, and in my opinion, a lot more powerful than acupuncture.
Wow. So does it when I hear that energy thing and the different points, my knowledge of that is in like the chakra sort of realm of those things. So each of these different chakras representing sort of a different type of energy that we hold in our body. So I noticed when you
Mhm.
were tapping, like you were tapping on the head. Does this tapping happen all over the body? Does it correspond with anything like that the chakra side of things has, or how do those things connect?
Um, so there are, like I said, 14 energy meridians in the body. I'm honestly not sure how they connect up with the chakras, but I know everything in our body is connected. So I would not,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I don't know how that connection actually happens, but I use the chakras every day as kind of a map to help me figure out what I need to focus on with my clients or with myself when I'm tapping.
Hmm.
Um, I'm sorry, Colin, can you repeat your question? Because I got a little sidetracked.
Yeah, no, that was one of them that you just answered.
Okay.
How does it connect? But then also, like, does it happen all over the body, or is it just kind of
Oh,
focused on like the head, sensitive area or something like that? How does
yeah.
that work?
Um, the, it really just matters that you are tapping on each of the energy meridians.
Okay.
So this one corresponds to, I think it's the stomach meridian in particular. This one corresponds to a different meridian in our bodies. There are
Mm.
14. So there's some on the head, then it goes down to the collarbone point, and then there's underneath your armpit,
Hmm.
on your ribs. There's three different ones on your wrists, so you tap your wrists together, and then you go back up to the top of your head. Now I have to give you a caveat and say, different tapping coaches use different tapping points. And that doesn't mean anybody is wrong. It just means it's a little bit different. But tapping is extremely forgiving. It's extremely effective no matter what points you're tapping on. I just like to do all of them because I figure I'm here. I might as well get the most bang for my buck. And so I'm just going to tap on all of the meridians in my practice. Yeah.
Cool. Mitchell, over to you,
Okay.
man. Any questions you got?
Yeah, I was just curious about some of the benefits that you've seen through your clients whenever you go through this with them, some of the results that they've had. If you could talk us through any of that.
Yes. So different things respond differently to tapping. And I would say things like fears and phobias, like if somebody has a phobia of flying in an airplane, that's usually a really easy thing to release with tapping. And it would take one, maybe two sessions. And depending on if you had like a really scary experience, because if you have a more related to PTSD type of experience, you need to go through the event very slowly. And, because when you have a PTSD event, there are many, many different points along the way that you have associated fear or trauma with. And so you need to tap through all of those different points. If you don't have a traumatic experience, then you can just focus in on the fear or phobia, and your body releases it actually fairly quickly. If you're working on something like the fear of not being enough, which usually happens over many, many years of small traumatic events, which add up to this big, big feeling that you are not enough, that takes a little longer to dislodge because it is, we hold trauma and we hold memories in our bodies. And when there's hundreds of memories that contribute to a specific belief, then it can take a little bit longer. But if it's something that you have no experience, no bad experience with, like flying, then it can be released in one session. If you do have a bad experience, then we go through that, kind of frame by frame to make sure you release it. And you don't, and if we're working on a big fear, like, um, not being enough or fear of rejection, you don't have to go through every single memory. You can do a conglomerate of memories, but it does take a little bit longer to dislodge. Like I've worked with some clients. Right now, I'm working with a couple that have beliefs based on alcoholic parents. So beliefs like I need to be perfect in order for them to love me. I need to do everything exactly right. And they've got all kinds of memories stacked up about that particular belief. And so it takes a little bit more time to work through that. But I've seen amazing results with some of my clients. And I have never had a client over like a year because they usually work through all of those things within that period of time and are able to move on with their lives. They'll come back to me at some point because healing happens in layers. You don't release everything you need to at one moment. You only release what you need to at that point in your life. And then you go on and you want to expand your world and your experience a little bit more. And then you'll have to come back because you'll hit up against that ceiling again and that fear or that belief about yourself. You'll bump up against it again because you're wanting to expand your life again. And so you'll need to work through another layer of it. And so that'll keep happening. I mean, we're always going to be a work in progress, right? We never reach the end goal when it comes to certain things. But if that makes sense, yeah. So it's
Yep.
different based on what we want to see happen. I, from my own experience and with the experience of some of my clients, some physical issues, I can get it from a 10 on the intensity scale down to a 0 in 90 minutes. It's so easy with
Wow.
certain things. Other things are a little bit harder. So it depends on the person and the topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this conversation kind of reminds me. I have a friend that has trauma from when she was a child with some abuse and stuff, and she's able now to talk about what happened, but she doesn't let herself feel what actually happened because she's still scared of, the feeling that she had when she was a kid. So she can acknowledge it, but that's the next step, is feeling it. So I think this is definitely something that I'm going to recommend to her and see how it can help her.
And especially for somebody like that, it is so beneficial to just start off slow. For this person, what we would do is put her trauma in a room down the hall behind the door of a vault.
Mm-hmm.
And if she knows it's down there, she has an awareness that it's down there, then we tap her, like if she's at a 10 on her intensity, like I know I'm going to have to talk about this sort of thing, then we tap her down while it's in the room down the hall. And then we get it to the point where she gets down to a 0, then we can open the door, but it's still down the hall. And then we just bring it closer and closer, slowly, slowly, so that it's a really manageable, not traumatic process. We don't want to re-traumatize somebody by
Mm-hmm.
reliving the events, right? We get them to bring it closer, slowly, slowly, and then we go through it frame by frame. So depending
Gotcha.
on how it goes, and the intensity that the person is perceiving it as, that dictates how we approach it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone's going to be a little different.
Yep.
Can you talk about just some of the specifics, like how you actually, like how hard you're pressing, and just some of the locations that you talked about earlier as well?
Yes, yes. So the first spot typically is right here on the side of your hand, the fleshy part of your hand, right below your pinky. It's called the karate
Mm-hmm.
chop point for a reason. Like if you're gonna, hi-ya. So tap those two spots together. That's your karate chop point. And while we're doing that, we're saying it's kind of called a setup phrase. And if we're going to use an example like lower back pain, we're trying to get rid of lower back pain, you would say something like, even though I have this incredible lower back pain, and sometimes it shoots down my leg and it makes it really hard for me to walk, I love and honor and accept all parts of who I am anyway. So that's a setup phrase. You say that 3 times. And then you go to your eyebrow point, which is right at the beginning of your eyebrows. And I want to say in the beginning, it's very important that you tap on the exact right spot, because if you tap up somewhere in the middle of your forehead because you're not paying attention, it's not going to be as effective. You have to be kind of a perfectionist when it comes to this. So right at the beginning of your eyebrows, and I use like 2 to 3 fingers, so I make sure that I'm tapping the exact right spot. And I'm tapping hard enough so that I feel it, not so hard that it's giving me a headache. The
Mm-hmm.
next spot is on the side of your eye, at your temples. The next spot is under your eye, right on top of your cheekbones. And then under your nose, under your mouth, and then the collarbone point. So if you find the beginnings of both of your collarbone and right in the middle there, you're going to go down about an inch. There's a little valley in between where your collarbone and your ribs are on either side of your sternum. So you want to tap in that spot. And then underneath your arms, for women, it's like right where their bra strap would be. For men, it's like 3 or 4 inches down from your armpit. I tend to hug myself. Some people do it one side or the other. And then the next spot is like on your ribs, maybe 3 inches down from your nipple.
Mm-hmm. And you're
And
repeating phrases each. Is it different phrases for each spot as you're going through, or do you say the same phrases as you go through the whole body?
good question. Good question. So we do the setup phrase in the beginning, and then on each of these spots we do like a repeater phrase. You can say something like, this lower back pain is so intense. It feels like somebody's sticking a knife in my back on my right side. You need to be very, very specific.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it may have something to do with my an injury I got a year ago, and so you kind of go through and you just talk about it. You talk
Mm.
about it in great detail. You try to honor everything about it. Like if you have a little um, kind of feeling in the back of your mind that it could be related to someone or something, bring it up. Don't assume that that's not part of it, because your subconscious mind is going to try and bring things up that are related so that you can release it.
Mm.
And so you just kind of use these repeater phases, and you go through and you do all of them. And I go through many rounds. I'll go through all the tapping points many times, maybe 5 times with some of my clients, and then we stop and we take a nice deep breath, and then we take a rating again. So you take a rating at the beginning before you start tapping, and you say, my intensity 0 to 10 is at a 7. This pain is really bad. And then we take a rating at the end, and maybe it went down to a 5. And then we just start tapping all over again. We talk about any feelings or thoughts that came up during the last tapping round, and we try to incorporate that into the next tapping round. And we just keep going until we get down to a 0. If people are struggling to get that number down, say they're at an 8 and it's not budging, that number is not budging, there are several things that could come into play. There could be a reversal, which means that there's a part of this person that doesn't want to heal. And it's not typically like, I just want to keep getting attention sort of thing, but it could be, if I heal, then it's going to mean something else scary. Or if I heal, then I have to do something that I don't want to do. And so we try to remove all those reversals by honoring them, acknowledging them, saying them out loud. That is incredibly cathartic, is saying it out loud. Most of my clients have said that exact same thing. The act of verbalizing these thoughts is really cathartic for people. So work through some of those reversals. You also probably need to drink some water, because this is an electrical process and it needs that conductivity to happen. So you need to be hydrated, you need to want to heal, and you need to be very specific. And you also need to be determined. You need to be determined to find the cause, the reason behind why this is there. And once you have all those things in place, your body will heal. It will let it go. And it'll happen in a matter of hours, not years with talk therapy or any other thing. Tapping is really fast. I was able to heal myself of chronic lower back pain from when I was in college, 20 plus years. I was probably tapped for maybe 3 hours straight. That's an
Wow.
incredible thing to be able to say. And I haven't had any lower back pain since then.
Wow.
So, and I think that it works on everything. I think, my personal opinion, all diseases, even injuries and pain, have an emotional aspect to them,
Sure.
especially if it's something chronic, because our bodies are meant to heal. They're made to heal. It's us that keeps getting in the way. And once we get those emotions out of the way, then we can heal really easily.
Yeah, I wonder
So
if this will.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, you can go on.
So, Amy, you talked a lot, like a lot of visual metaphors here, and we talked about like putting the trauma like down the hallway and really tapping. Okay, kind of a pun there, but tapping into that during the tapping.
Yeah.
So, can you talk more about the visualization aspect and like what role does that play? How much of it? How is that an important aspect, or what?
It absolutely is. And I often use it when setting up a tapping round. Say, for example, we want to remove or neutralize this feeling that you're not enough, which is kind of a vague sort of thing. And we know that whoever the client is, has had many, many experiences, unhappy experiences in their childhood with both mom and dad, that have led them to believe that they are not enough. So oftentimes I will have them do a visualization at the beginning of our session that can put them in the place where it was really, really painful, because it is beneficial to really get the person activated as much as possible. When we're in our day-to-day lives like this, the feeling of not being enough isn't front and center. It's way back in the background. And so we need to bring it front and center. And the best way to do that is by doing a visualization. So I'll say something like, let's think back to a time when you're maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, where you experienced this feeling of not being enough. And then, they'll come up with something. It might be like a picture. It might be a conglomerate of memories where they're in their living room and they can tell me what they're wearing, what's happening around them. Sometimes it's a very specific event, and we'll bring that to the forefront so that we can heal something specific. Otherwise, if I say, I've got this, I know that I have this feeling of not being enough, but I'm not in touch with it right now, then it's not going to be very effective to do the tapping on it in that moment. It needs to be activated. And so I often use visualizations of that sort. It's really only with kind of a PTSD, traumatic event, that I'll do something like putting it down the hall, or, and then bringing it closer slowly, because people often go into that visualization where they're kind of experiencing it again on a visceral level. And so I want to start off slowly with them in order to make it a more palatable process.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, this is going really deep. So, as far as I know, you said it works for everything, but for the average person, what aspect of their lives? I mean, it seems like you're talking about some really hard to reach things, like, or we could say hard to treat, in our lives, but then also things that are treated in other ways, like lower back pain. People do a lot of other things to treat lower back pain. So where do you see like the starting point for people for benefiting their lives?
I tend to go straight to the hard stuff.
Okay.
Really, really
Sure.
big topics. um, but tapping can be used for literally everything. It can be used right before you go to bed for falling asleep easily and staying asleep all night long. It can be used for, if you're having a craving for sweets in the moment, you can tap for 10 minutes and get back to a place where you want to put something really healthy in your body. It can be about sports performance. I'm creating an app right now, so I've got all of these different categories. It could be getting rid of sadness. It could be about, even getting ready for meditation. Sometimes your mind is busy and it makes it harder to meditate in those moments. And so you take 10 minutes to feel peaceful and calm, and just quiet your mind, and you'll have a exponentially better meditation experience. And so really can be used for everything in the moment. Because what it's doing is it's removing cortisol from our system, the thing that makes our head spin constantly and worry. It's removing cortisol from our system at a lot faster rate, making us feel peaceful and calm. A lot of times my clients will tell me that they're exhausted after tapping for a little while, and it's just because our bodies are so relaxed. We don't know what exhaustion feels like. We just know what constant anxiety feels like. So it's really can be used for anything at any moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that really seems like a big advantage to me. Like you don't have to go anywhere. I mean, obviously, we encourage people to go to someone like who's an expert that can really lead them into it. But it sounds like, if you want to see, hey, I want to dip my toe into this. I mean, it can really be fairly simple. It sounds like you have all the tools on you right now.
Yes. Yes. Working with bigger things like anxiety and depression, it's really difficult to know where to start and how to navigate that. On the app, I created videos for people to find their way through those big things. If they don't want to work with a coach themselves, they can do it on their own. And I've laid out kind of how you go about that, because it really is such a huge topic, and making progress can feel oh, like, you don't know where to start. It's impossible when you're in that space.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it really can be used for anything and very effectively.
So I know the app
Mhm.
is still in the works, but if people are listening to this in the future, do you have a name? Could you give somebody something to go and find it off
Yes,
of?
absolutely. It's the Soar with Tapping app. And you can go to my website, soarwithtapping.com, and sign up to get notifications about when that's coming out. We're starting testing in just a couple weeks and hoping to launch, I think, end of July, somewhere around that
Oh, very
time
soon.
frame.
Great.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll
Okay,
give a
yeah.
shout out. I'll just say we'll give a shout out on the website about your website and then also the app as well for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for coming on today. Is there anything else? Sounds like we got your website on there. People know how to contact you. Is there anything else that you want to mention on the tapping subject, or anything else?
I do want to mention just about the app that there is free content there. I don't feel like if people can't afford it, they should be denied the opportunity to heal. So I've
Mm.
picked so far, I mean, there will be more added, but I've picked 25 of the most used, most common issues that I could think of. And those are absolutely free to anybody. So don't let a cost deter you from trying this out for yourself, because I really feel like it is the most powerful healing tool that's out there today.
Mhm.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I love
thank you,
that.
Amy. Mitchell, anything from you, man?
Yeah, I just wrote a few short notes as you were going, Amy. I hope one day, with how beneficial you're saying that this is, I hope it becomes more mainstream for talk therapy, and that therapists actually start using this in their practice instead of only talk therapy. Um, and I think, as well as you were saying, it's really important to be honest with yourself, like when you're going through these different taps and the verbal words you're saying, because your subconscious will know if you're lying to yourself. And I think that'll block a lot of the potential benefits the tapping can give you. And I also love that you're talking more about root issues that someone can have in their life. It's not just, top issues like, oh, someone cut me off on the freeway today, I'm going to tap that away. It's more like, I don't feel worthy, or I have trauma from back in the day. And I really like that. It can really help improve someone's life. And just lastly, I love ways to help people that aren't pharmaceutical, it's not drugs, it's just very physical, very natural. Of course, some people are going to need some pharmaceuticals for certain issues, but if they can be helped in a more natural way, I just love that 100%. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been super interesting. I'm sure we could talk for hours if we really wanted to.
I love talking about tapping, so I'd be happy to do that. I do want to point out that a lot more studies are being done about tapping and its effectiveness, especially with um, um, people that have like been in wars,
Hmm.
that have traumatic PTSD from that type
Hmm.
of a war environment. And it's got a lot of great results. So I have a feeling that tapping will be more mainstream in the very near future. And I look forward to that day very much.
Yep. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this latest episode of Green Thumbs and Good Vibes, and hope you join us next time.
All right, take care.